Sup peeps, so here, and I have another ranking video today. Now, you can probably tell from the shirt that I'm wearing. I am going to be ranking the Legend of Zelda games. Now, I just want to get a few little things out the way first. First of all, I'm only counting games that are recognized as canonical by Nintendo and the Hyrule Historia. So, the three CDI games will not be appearing on this list. Also, I am not including any remasters of previously released games. So, Link's Awakening DX and the Ocarina of Time, and games like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask 3D, and things like Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD and Skyward Sword HD will not be on this list because they are simply just enhanced versions of the original games. I am, however, going to be including remakes, so the remake of Link's Awakening will be on the list. Also, I am only including Legend of Zelda games, meaning games that have Legend of Zelda in the title. So, for example, games like Hyrule Warriors are not on the list, and I'm also not including games that have characters from the Legend of Zelda series in them. So you're not going to see any of the Super Smash Bros. Games on the list. You're not going to see Mario Kart 8 on the list, and so on and so forth. Also, normally I would have S, A, B, C, D, E, and F. Now, because this is a series that I'm talking about that really doesn't have any terrible games in it, we're not going to have any E or F for this list. We're only going to have S, A, B, C, D. S means the games are the top tier, which, by the way, we're going to see a lot of those. A means the game is great. B means the game is good. C means the game is okay. And D means the game is just below average for a Zelda game. Okay, with all that out of the way, let's start with the game that started it all, the original Legend of Zelda. Now, realistically, there's only one ranking that I can give this game, and that is an S. And my reasoning for this, even though it's not all game, is it started the entire franchise. It paved the way for a lot of games that came after it. And what I mean is, this is a game that is pretty much important to gaming as a whole. It started one of the biggest and greatest gaming franchises of all time. It basically did a lot of things that a lot of games that came after it would take from. It took what was at that point, a very small, restrictive genre and opened it up and opened the floodgates. So for that reason, I'm giving the original Legend of Zelda an S. Now we come to Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. Now, this is a very different Legend of Zelda game to the other games in the series, based on the fact that this game is, well, it's a 2D side-scrolling game. It is a side-scrolling game. It isn't like any of the other Zelda games. It's also a lot harder than most of the Zelda games as a result of this. However, I'm going to give it a C because while it is very, very, very different, it's still a good game. It's just very, 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 very different in its approach to the traditional Zelda formula. So therefore, we'll get to C. Now we come to A Link to the Past. Now, this was the Legend of Zelda game that was on the SNES. This and I believe two other games which are coming up on the list later, are often cited by people as the greatest games ever made. A Link to the Past is up there. It gets an S. A Link to the Past is one of the best games ever made, period. It really started what would be the traditional original style Zelda going forward. It started a lot of that, a lot of the elements that would shape the series in future years also came from this game, so therefore it gets an S. It has a phenomenal story, phenomenal soundtrack. Just, it's a game that has stood the test of time. Now we have the original Link's Awakening from 1993. Now, what I will say about this game is, it is still a great game. It has a lot of references to other Zelda games. However, since we're talking about the original monochrome Game Boy game, I can't in all conscience give it an S. I'm giving it a B. That doesn't mean it's a bad game. It's still a great game. I just think that the remake that came out years later, and even DX, the Game Boy Color enhanced version of Link's Awakening, did a much better job with this game. It is still a great game. Don't get me wrong. None of these games are bad games. Every single game within this franchise that's officially recognized as canon is a great game. I don't want anybody to think that they're not. It's just that this is one of the ones which is a good game. It's a great, it's a good game. Like I said, B stands for good. Next we have Ocarina of Time. Now let's just get this out of the way. S. Just straight up S. This game is genuinely one of the greatest games ever made. There's no way that you can, in all good conscience, make a Zelda rankings list and not include this game in S. To a lot of people, this game is perfect. This is, to a lot of people, what Kingdom Hearts 2 is to me. Damn near perfect in every single way. It's also the first 3D Zelda game. It paved the way for a lot of 3D RPG action games going forward. It's just, it is legitimately one of the greatest games ever made. It gets an S. Now we have Majora's Mask. Now, Majora's Mask occupies a very strange place within the history of the Zelda games. It is one of, I believe, only two, maybe three Zelda games, if I'm wrong, correct me in the comments, that doesn't take place in Hyrule at all. Majora's Mask is pretty much known for having some of the most creepy and dark undertones and elements of the franchise. It's still a great game. I just feel like Ocarina of Time is a superior game to it. I'm giving it an A. But let's be honest, Majora's Mask is still a fantastic game. It's a very dark, creepy, trippy game that has a lot of iconic elements within it. And the whole reversing time and having the 3-day skip cycle is a really great mechanic that they really should return to a similar kind of thing at some point. Now we have Oracle of Seasons and Ages. Now I'm putting these both together in one because both these games make up one game. These are really good GBA games. The interesting thing to remember about these games is Capcom actually had involvement in these games. Now, I'm going to give these games a C. Now, the reason why these games get a C is pretty straightforward. They are pretty much a more kind of enhanced version of Link's Awakening. The thing that works against them is if you want to experience the whole proper story, you need both of these games and you need to link them together. No pun intended. And it's just kind of... It's a great idea, but I would love to see it explored in a better way with a remake, possibly. But yeah, they both get a C. Now we come to a game that is my thumbnail creator, Connor, who is also my best friend, and basically someone who I've known all my life. A game which is his favorite game of all time, Wind Waker. Now, I'm not just giving this game this ranking because he'll kill me if I don't. I'm giving this game this ranking because I truly believe this game deserves ranking. It gets an S. Because, in all honesty, Wind Waker is a breath of fresh air in the franchise in terms of it has a very unique art style to it. It has a version of Link which I think is absolutely adorable. It has some very, and Connor will agree with me on this, it has some very frustrating moments, but it also has some very charming moments. And it gets an S just based on it is so different to the rest of the franchise and so unique and has its own like fresh take on it. And also, it's a game that has stood the test of time from a visual standpoint, so therefore it gets an S. Now, we come to a game which it's very difficult for me to describe and very difficult to rank and talk about. Four Swords Adventure. This started a sub-series within the main continuity, the main franchise of multiple links. Now, Four Swords Adventure is pretty much an expansion of what was a bonus multiplayer feature to the Game Boy Advance port of A Link to the Past. I like the concept of the multiple links for a multiplayer Zelda game. I think it gets explored in a better way in another game that comes up on this ranking later on. But I'm giving this a D, mainly because it feels a lot like they just took the Four Swords part of... It looks like they just took the Four Swords part of the GBA version of Link to the Past, just added extra features and called it a day. It's still a great game though, but it gets a D because it doesn't feel like a proper Zelda game. Now we have the Minish Cap. Now, the Minish Cap is the GBA game. This game gets a B. It tries some nice, unique new things. It's cool we get to see Toon Link again. Toon Link would appear in quite a few of the handheld games going forward. And the art style of Wind Waker would be used for a lot of the Game Boy Advance games and DS games going forward. Minish Cap was a great game. I'm giving it a B though, purely because it's a little bit on the smaller, shorter side of the franchise. I know isn't a bad thing because it's a GBA game, but it still would be nice if the game had been of a nice length compared to others. Some of the puzzles in the game can be a little bit head-scratchy too. I like the idea that it presents with the Minish Cap itself. I think it's a cool concept that they should have done more with in other games after it. But yeah, it gets a B. Now we have Twilight Princess. Now, the thing with Twilight Princess is, whatever ranking I give this game, people are gonna hate me for it. If I give this a high ranking, people that don't like this game are gonna hate me for it. If I give this game a low ranking, people that love this game are gonna hate me for it. But I'm giving it an S. I don't give a shit. I'm giving it an S. This game is fantastic. It just is. The stuff that it does with Wolf Link is fantastic. It has one of the creepiest characters introduced in it. I like the art style of it. It's a very, 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 very good Zelda game and feels a lot like what Ocarina of Time would have been if it had released in what was at the time the modern day. So it gets an S. Now we have Phantom Hourglass. Phantom Hourglass gets a D. Mainly because I feel like this game, while it's good and has some good elements to it, it's way, 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 way too convoluted with some of the things that it does. So therefore, it gets a D. It's still a good game, but it gets a D. Now we have Spirit Tracks. Now, I want to preface that Spirit Tracks is my least favorite of the main Zelda series. And I will say straight up right now why I think this game is the weakest. You have a lot of elements with the train and things like that that don't quite work. They just don't. They just don't quite work. There's a lot of problems that it has too, with a lot of the pacing issues. It has a lot of issues that prevent it from being a top tier game. But yeah, that's why it gets to do. Now we have Skyward Sword. Now, this is going to be a controversial one to place, because I know there are people who think this game is fantastic, and there are people who hate this game. I am giving Skyward Sword a B. Now, the main reason why I'm giving Skyward Sword a B is because I absolutely love what it does with the story of telling the connection between Link and Zelda. That is the reason why this game gets a B, because of that. As a game itself, it's a very by-the-numbers Zelda game in terms of the gameplay elements. It's a very by-the-numbers Zelda game with the gameplay elements. But what it does with the story with Link and Zelda is just phenomenal, and it gets a B based on that. Now we have A Link Between Worlds. This is a 3DS game. This is the game which is allegedly a spiritual successor / sequel to A Link to the Past, where Link can basically go into walls. He can become, well, a drawing, basically, and go into the walls in 2D environments. It is to the Legend of Zelda series what Super Paper Mario is to the Paper Mario series. It's still a really good game. It gets a B. It's still a really good game. It just has a few niggly little issues with it that prevent it from being one of the best games. Now we have Triforce Heroes. Now, Triforce Heroes falls into the same problem that Four Swords Adventure falls into. It's a multiplayer-focused Zelda game that has multiple links. I would argue that this game does what Four Swords Adventure did, but better. I would argue that this does what Four Swords Adventure did, but it does it better. However, I am still only going to give it a D, because I feel like there's only so much you can do with this kind of formula within the Zelda franchise, so therefore I'm still just going to give it a D. Now we have Breath of the Wild. Now, I am just going to put this out there. Breath of the Wild, it gets a freaking S. Breath of the Wild is my personal favorite Legend of Zelda game. I adore this game so much. I adore the freedom that this game gives you. I adore just so many of the things that this game does. I just adore. I think this is the best Zelda game ever made, and that's why it gets an S, and I'm putting it at the top of S. I just think this game is an absolute phenomenal. This game is genuinely one of my favorite games of all time. It is one of my favorite games of all time. I absolutely adore this game. I think a lot of the things, the change up that this game does to the Zelda formula can't even be questioned. It does a lot changing up the formula, and it gets an S for that. And then we have Tears of the Kingdom. Now, a lot of people are gonna hate me for this, but Tears of the Kingdom gets an A. And the reason why it gets an A and not an S is pretty cut and dry. In a lot of places, it is way too similar. Way too similar to Breath of the Wild. Yes, it introduces the different islands, like the ones in the sky and the water thing. It introduces that element, yes, and it introduces the element where you can build and create things. But I'm judging this based on the gameplay elements, and a lot of what this game does is very similar to Breath of the Wild. I just think Breath of the Wild is the better game of the two. It gets an A. It's still a fantastic game, but gets an A. And lastly, and I know I just did these last two out of sequence, but I had to do Tears of the Kingdom after Breath of the Wild because it's a sequel to it. We have the remake of Link's Awakening from 2019. This gets an A. The art style of this game is adorable. The gameplay is great. Just everything about this game is great, and I'm looking forward to the sequel that's going to come out. But yeah, just everything about this game is just great. Now, that was the ranking. That was the list. I want to say that if your favorite Zelda game is low down on this list, don't be too bothered by that because it's just my personal opinion. Like I said, I don't think any of the games that are on this list are bad games. I don't think any of them are bad games. I think they're all great games. It's just that some of them are much better than others. And I feel like, being 100% brutally honest, this was my personal honest opinion and honest take on this franchise. And but yeah, the chart will be up on the screen now. In S, we have the original Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Breath of the Wild are all in S. In A, we have Link's Awakening, Majora's Mask, Tears of the Kingdom, and Link's Awakening Remake. In B, we have the Minish Cap, and Skyward Sword and A Link Between Worlds. And C, we have Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, Oracle of Seasons, Oracle of Ages. That's all we haven't seen. In D, we have Four Swords Adventure, Phantom Hourglass, Spirit Tracks, and Triforce Heroes. So yeah, that was my ranking of Zelda games. Let me know in the comments what your personal ranking is. The Zelda series is a series that I've basically played my entire life, and yeah, in fact, my earliest gaming memory is playing a Zelda game. So yeah, that was my list. If you like what you saw, smack that like button, slap the notification bell, smash the subscribe button. This is Sora, signing out. Later guys, peace.